Hey everyone, today we're going to learn about the basics of animations and the things that go across any tool, no matter if you're using After Effects, Camtasia, Storyline, Lectora, Captivate, any of those tools. We're going to talk about some basic principles that will help you understand how to animate better inside of your e-learning tools. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Batt, and if you haven't checked out my website already, go ahead and check out my website at learningdojo.ninja. Here you can check out all previous blog posts covering anything learning development related. If you're going to build any type of online training, this is the resource for you. You can also download templates, and these are free templates in Articulate Storyline 360 or XAPI and video templates. And if any of these tools are new to you and you want to learn everything from A to Z, you can check out my full courses in Articulate Storyline 360, Adobe Captivate, XAPI Fundamentals, Camtasia, Articulate Rise, Custom SCORM, and HTML5 Video. But today we're going to learn about animation basics and some principles that will help you understand how to animate better no matter what tool that you're using, whether you're using Camtasia, if you're using After Effects, if you're using Storyline or Captivate, or if you're using Adobe Animate. Any of those types of tools kind of follow these basic principles. So let's go ahead and talk about some of these animation basics. So the first thing when you're animating is you need to know what stage or composition or canvas do you have to work with. Is it a responsive canvas? Is it a responsive stage? Or is it just a set standard size and position that you're going to be working with when you're animating? So understanding the X and the Y will actually help you understand where to place objects on your stage. In fact, a good way to remember this, and this is the way that I first remembered it when I was learning how to program on which one is which. X is across, which means it goes from side to side. And then Y, actually, I think of it like Y's up. It goes up and down. And so if you're going to position something and you want it to be positioned horizontally, you'll use the X value. If you want it to be positioned vertically, you'll use the Y value. So that's important because that really comes into play when you're going to position your content. So the top left-hand side, and this is a little bit different, the top left-hand side is the position of 0, 0. So if I wanted something at 0x and 0y, it's going to place it on the top left-hand side. And it's going to place it depending on the tool on where its anchor point is. And so some tools will have anchor points that are directly in the middle. Some tools will have anchor points that are on the top left-hand side. And if I were to give this and I had the anchor point on the top left-hand side of my object, then it would actually place my content if I gave it 0, 0 on the top left-hand side. Now, if the anchor point was in the middle, it would kind of push it off the stage a little bit, and it would place that on the top left-hand side, but kind of off the stage. So it really takes that anchor point and positions that anchor point at 0, 0, and the rest of the object kind of goes around that anchor point. We'll talk about different ways to see the anchor point depending on the tool that you're using. So that is position. So if I wanted to have something positioned 700 across, I would give it the value of 700 in the X value. And if I wanted to have it 600 down, I would give it the value of 600. So that's really kind of the position, the X and the Y value. Now the object, if you're talking about elements, if you're talking about objects or different things, images or other things that I can position, that really is usually referenced as the object or as the elements. And that object itself has different properties. And this is really where animation comes into play, is you're adjusting properties over a timeline period. So I'm going to take the X value and I'm going to adjust it down to this X value, and I'm going to adjust those properties over time. So then there's different types of properties that you can adjust and you can animate. So it depends on what tool that you're using. Some tools give you access to more properties. Some tools give you access to less properties. So it really, again, goes back to the tool. My recommendation is exhaust what the tool can do before you start looking at other tools. So we have the X value, we have the Y value, which is the position. We can also animate like the width, and we can animate the height. We can animate in some tools the anchor point. So if we wanted to have the anchor point be at different positions, which will give us different rotation types of styles and different types of positioning styles as well, we can also animate the anchor point. We can adjust the color, which is also a property. We can adjust the stroke, the bar that goes around as well. So these are different things that we can animate. When you animate these properties, you're essentially going from a point A to a point B. I want it to be this property at this point, and I want it to be that property at the end of that timeline, at point B, basically. So if you keep in mind these different types of properties that you can adjust, opacity, rotation, scale, position, anchor points, and so forth, then we start to add these keyframes. So if you heard the term keyframe, it really comes into play of like, at this point in time, I want it to start with the X value of this. But then at this point in time, I want it to end with the X value of this. And it could be more than one property. It doesn't have to be just one property. It could be things like width and height. I can do width and height at the same time. It's just there's a point A and there's a point B. It's going to be this at point A and it's going to be this at point B. Those are my keyframes. Those are the kind of start and stop of my different properties. When I think of keyframing and animation, I kind of think of old school Disney type of animations where you'd have an animator go in and you'd have one main animator go in and animate the important keyframes. So they would, the different positions, the different angles, they would animate just the important parts. And then you would have somebody go in and do the in-between. So they would go, okay, here's a keyframe, an important part, here's another keyframe, and I'm going to animate every step. Now, they don't have to get exactly every little, okay, just one X value, I'm going to add one more X value, I'm going to add one more X value. They can kind of skip and go from 0x to 5x to 10x, and it still looks fluid. So that was really the job of those in-betweeners. And that's really where that term tween came into play, where it would take from point A, where the keyframe came into play, to point B, where the keyframe ends. We're going to animate in between those two different points. So keep that in mind, because when we start to animate X value, it's going to start at 139 and it's going to end at 1328. When we add a tween, which some tools do the tween automatically, but when we add a tween, it will automatically update that value. So you can see it starts to update. Now it's not doing it by one each time. It's kind of skipping a little bit and jumping to those different frames. You can do the same thing with any type of property. So you can add a tween so you get the effect of like things growing and shrinking or changing colors. Really, it's going from that point A properties to the point B properties, whatever they are. And that's the animation, that's the tween that the tool automatically takes care of for you. Let's take a quick look at how this is handled differently in a couple different tools. So the first tool that I'm going to use is Storyline. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a shape. Now, Storyline's animation controls are kind of limited, but it still does the basic kind of effects of animating from point A to point B. And typically this is done inside of a motion path. So if I add a motion path, here is my point A, and then I can adjust the point B in anywhere, any location that I want. Now notice down here, this is the length of that animation. So I can grab that little yellow dot and have that stretch out for that amount of time. So it allows me to adjust that. But notice when I come into that point of time, this is going to, it doesn't show up here, but it's really just changing the X value. Because if I come over here and just move that over here, notice how the X value is about 755. So it's adjusting the X. Now, if I was moving it side to side, but also up and down, it would adjust both the X and the Y value. So we're adjusting both things there. Now, with the other types of animations inside a Storyline, I don't really see that much control, but it's really adjusting the same types of things. So I'm going to go back and do a Control Z or a Command Z to go back, and I'm going to go ahead and just add a fade. Now, what this is doing for this length of time down here is it's going from a transparency of 0 to a transparency of 100. So it's going to be fully gone at 0, and then at the end of that length of time, that tween, it's going to be 100, and that's really what a fade is. So that is how Storyline handles it. Let's go in and pull this up. I am going to go into After Effects, but I want to pull this up in Camtasia. Now I'm recording in Camtasia 2023, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up my Camtasia 2022 just so I can see this. It really handles it the same way. Let's go ahead and add an annotation here. And I'm going to to add a shape, and I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to add an animation. So let's stretch this out a little bit longer, and then I'm going to go into my animations. This has already some properties that it's going to adjust. For most of those, it has a couple different properties going from point A to point B. I want to just fully control that. So I'm going to use a custom one by clicking and dragging here. And this is literally point A. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. We have our point A with this dot, and we have our point B with that other dot. So really at this point, nothing is happening, but the arrow is the length of time that tween is going to happen. So what I need to do is either adjust the point A to be something different than point B, or I need to adjust point B to be something different than point A, or else nothing is really changing. We're not changing anything about the properties. So you may be asking yourself, what properties can I change? If I select my object in Camtasia over on the right-hand side, any of the options that I see within this first tab or the second tab, so the first tab being the video, the visual properties, the second tab being the annotation properties, any of those different properties can be animated. So I can animate the color, I can animate the outline, I can animate the scale, the opacity, transparency and opacity. I've heard them used differently in different tools, but that's essentially the same thing to make it see-through, to have it fade in. Let's say have this kind of fade out right here. So I'm going to take it down to 1% there. For some reason, I can't do 0. I don't know why in Camtasia. And then that's what it's going to be at point B. Notice that because I already had it set for point A, it's going to have it kind of scaled down. Well, let me hit Control Z and go back to, or Command Z. I'm going to go back to point A, and I'm going to go ahead and adjust this to be 1% at point A, and then it's going to come in to point B. So that's how Camtasia handles it, and I can add additional properties. So I can come in here and change the color to red. So at point A, the color was white, and now at point B, the color is red. So we get that nice kind of transition from the properties of point A to the properties of point B. That's the tween. So it's really just a matter of adjusting those different properties. Now I can do that visually as well. If I also wanted it to move, here's my point B. Instead of going in and adjusting the X and the Y value here, or the X and Y value there, I can actually just click and drag, and then it will move from point A to point B. So I can adjust those different things right within here. And you can also adjust the rotation. Now the rotation is the Z, the Y, and the X value as well to get this nice kind of 3D type of effect. So those are your different properties inside of Camtasia. Let's look at a different tool which may kind of seem overwhelming at first, but it probably gives us the most flexibility over animation. And the reason why is because it opens up more properties. Really having more properties, more access to, similar over to Camtasia here, having access to more properties allows us to do more. So that's really why you would want to use After Effects, is if you want to go beyond Camtasia. So exhaust everything that Camtasia can do, but if you run into some things where it can't do, maybe you want to build something inside of After Effects or get somebody to use inside of After Effects here. So I'm going to start, and I'm just going to do a quick overview of After Effects. I'm going to go into the new composition here. I'm going to set this to 1920 by 1080. We'll keep the background at black and hit OK. Now I'm going to add a shape, and let's just draw out a shape here, which is the same type of shape that we worked with before. And I'm going to take this to point A, and I'm going to go ahead and add a position keyframe. Now with the object selected, I can either come down here and go to my position right here. So I have to select a couple of drop-down boxes, or I can just hit the letter P. If I hit the letter P, position will just pop up here. Now I want to start adding keyframes. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding one keyframe. So you'll notice this right here. And I'm going to go to my 1 second mark, which is, if you don't see the seconds, you can actually just click this button right here, or just hold down Command click, I believe. And then now I can see the 1 second mark right there. So there's my 1 second mark. What I need to do from here is just click and drag. So all I have to do is click and drag, and you'll notice the anchor point is actually right here. I probably want to change that before I start to animate. So I'm going to go ahead and just do Control Z. And then I'm going to move my anchor point, which this you don't always have to move. Mine just for some reason happened to be over there. But I'm going to move my anchor point to that location. All right, so now I can do this a little bit better. So let's go ahead and turn on our keyframes again. and I'm going to move it to a little bit further here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just move my object. And you'll notice there's my line right there. And so I have that object going from point A to point B. Well, I could also have that object animate color. So if I come in and go into my contents here, I just have to select the drop-down box and find my color rectangle, which is probably under the fill here. And then on my point B, let's go ahead and add some keyframes. So I'm going to say color this is where it's going to end up. And then I have to have a point A. So I'm going to go ahead and hit keyframe there and then change the color to something else. So I'm doing the same thing. I just have more access to more properties inside of Adobe. So you have full control over those different properties and you have more access to more properties inside of After Effects, but you still are changing from a point A to point B, those different properties. Now you could have a point C, you could animate other things later on. There is also one other principle that I want to talk about, which is easing. This adds a little bit more of a realistic effect to your animations, because without easing, you have just a straight line. It just kind of happens. There's no speeding up. There's no slowing down. There's no bounce effect. There's no other things like that. So easing really kind of makes it a little bit more realistic, where it slows down and there's more keyframes at first because it's going a little slow because it's hitting all those different keyframes, and then it starts to speed up and then it starts to slow down again. That's really what easing does. So there's a couple different options, and the best way to kind of visualize this is inside of After Effects. If I right click this here, I can go into Keyframe Assistance. I can add on either Easy Ease In, Easy Ease Out, or Easy Ease. Now the difference between those is coming out of the keyframe. If coming out of the keyframe, so from point A, coming out of point A, that is actually out. So if I wanted to have that kind of slow down at the very first, I would use the word out. If I wanted to have it slowing down coming into point B, I would use the option for in. So coming into here, let's go ahead and right click, and this is going to come in here. I'm going to go ahead and just say Easy Ease In. And so that's going to start to slow down, and I can see my different keyframes right here. And notice that there are more keyframes, these little dots here. There are more keyframes as I start to come into point B. Now I could do the same thing and add on Easy Ease In, and actually no, this one I'd probably want to do Easy Ease Out, and that would actually add on a bunch of keyframes at the first as well. So I can start to add these eases, and you'll notice how it's slow at first, and then it speeds up, and then it gets slow towards the end. If I wanted both of them anyways, Easy Ease In and Easy Ease Out, I would actually just come back into here. Let's right click on this and then go into Keyframe Assistance and do that. And then it will slow coming in and it will slow coming out as well. Now there's other options, and I'm going to go into Camtasia here. I'm going to right click here and go into Animation Easing. Now exponential in and out will kind of do the same thing, where it kind of starts to slow in when it starts to come into that keyframe, or it will slow coming out of that keyframe as well. But we also have some other types of easing. Now we can also do an After Effects, but we have to adjust it through a graph, but we have like a bounce or a spring. Now notice this is the spring will actually bounce a little bit and come back. So that is an easing effect. If I wanted to right click again, I can go to Animation and I can click Bounce. Now the difference between spring and bounce is spring goes beyond point A, and then bounce actually will just stop right at that and bounce kind of like a basketball. It doesn't go past the ground. It just hits the ground and bounces up kind of thing. Now we don't have much control over the easing with Storyline. You could go into Path Options and then right here. So we have the speed, slow, very fast. That's similar to easing, where I can start to slow it down, or I can start to make it faster towards the end, or things like that. So hopefully that's useful for you, that you're able to pick up on the basics of animation. And really animation is going from point A properties to point B properties, and then to point C properties, and you're just changing properties. You're just changing things. That's really all that animation is. And then you can add on additional types of effects like easing. And really understanding that allows you to take more advantage of these types of options, whether you're using Camtasia, Storyline, Captivate, After Effects, or anything like that. If you want to check out more tutorials, head on over to my website at learningdojo.ninja. Here you can check out all my previous blog posts covering anything learning development related. You can also download free templates in Articulate Storyline 360, XAPI, or video. You can also check out full courses if any of these topics are new to you. You can check out full courses covering everything from A to Z in Articulate Storyline 360, Adobe Captivate, XAPI Fundamentals, Camtasia, Articulate Rise, Custom Squirm, and HTML5 video. And if you like this video, head on over to my YouTube channel, click that like button and subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification so you get notified of all future videos as they come out. That really helps my channel, allows me to continue to make these videos for you and produce additional content. And also, if you have any other suggestions, feel free to comment what you want to see down below the video. That's all I have for today, so thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.